Let's talk about the metaphysics of prejudice. How you replace reality with a prejudice, and then that's supposed to count. And so what the person does doesn't matter because you know that he is inferior. We now have, I think, the peak of this teen brain myth. I've identified the actual peak in this Norwegian website by the LHL. It's something to do with stroke. And they cite this doctor, Kaja Nordengen, who seems to be an actual brain researcher, and she actually comes here with a claim that goes beyond the 25-year meme. She says that the frontal cortex is not considered fully developed until you're almost 30. And she says that when you are young, then your group, youth as a group, they underestimate risk and overestimate potential reward. They have a tendency to choose small pleasures here and now over bigger pleasures later. That's what she claims. And she is so authoritative, right? She's to the normies, like, this is what, oh yeah, this is serious science, we believe it. It is the peak of the teen brain myth, just when it's also starting to decline a little bit. So you have this article in Slate ridiculing it from last year, 2022, and then you have a book from 2021 called An Empirical Introduction to Youth, where it's all laid out how this is all complete bullshit. But here in Norway, the myth is very strong. You can hardly find a normie who doesn't believe this. But let's talk about just the philosophical level of this, because we know it doesn't correspond to the actual behavior of young people. Whenever you measure their behavior, this is all falsified. They don't take more risk. In fact, they take less risks. For example, if you studied who used the most condoms, it's actually young people. This supposed group who cannot control their impulses. They are most susceptible to the propaganda that you're supposed to use condoms, and they use it the most. And who use it the least? That's older men like me. And I would actually count it as wisdom to know you don't want to use it. But if you go by this thinking that you supposedly have proven their immaturity, and you think that the right solution to do is to protect yourself from STDs at the cost of the reward, it would be to not do so. Then it contradicts this whole idea that young people are supposed retards who cannot understand risk. And that's just one tiny example. You read An Empirical Introduction to Youth for a full treatment of this. I wanted to talk about the metaphysics. When you have a supposed expert telling us that things are not what they seem. She's telling us that young people under 30, it used to be 25, and before that it was 18, and now it's 30. And all of that is wrong, because the correct answer is that the brain is finished at the end of puberty. And any difference later is not a significant weakness that you can use to talk about young people as a group as retards, like the normies do now. So let's talk about this, the metaphysics of this. So you have these witch doctors telling us that people don't count. They don't count. Something invisible inside of them that you can never observe, but these witch doctors, they can observe it because they have the supposed expertise to know these things. They can tell us that young people are immature and they cannot understand risk. They're not fully human. They're subhumans who don't make the appropriate decisions. And there's an extra level to this because you're imposing values on them. Like they don't know their own good. And then even if you believe in those values, like for example, that you believe that using condoms is the right thing to do, it doesn't even match that hypothesis. They don't act like this. In reality, who takes the most risks? Is it the stupid people? You have this myth that young men are so dangerous drivers because they're stupid. Well, driving is something that takes practice. And this has actually been studied. And what happens is that if you learn to drive later as opposed to earlier, then you're not any better at it. You should expect to find that if you didn't try to learn to drive until you're 25, then you would be a better driver than somebody starting to drive at 14. And that's not true. Or at least not at 16, according to the studies. So all you have is a metaphysical belief. These young people are stupid because the brain scientists told us so. And it's very sinister to have this metaphysical claim replace the person. That is evil. It's this exact same thing we've been fighting against for racism, and against sexism. Because if you have the attitude that somebody is a subhuman or not fully able to be mature because of some fact that you know about them, or you think you know about them, and then you discount all their actual behavior, then that's some really problematic prejudice. So we rightly got past that for racism, for example. We don't accept that. I mean, it's one thing that's if you take an IQ test and you reveal how smart you are, then you can be judged by that IQ test. And it's an empirical question how much that differs between groups of people. That's one thing. But once you have actually taken that test and you have a certain IQ, then you have to stop. You can't use a metaphysical fact that you think you know about them to dismiss their actual behavior and their actual intelligence. And that is what we're doing right now to young people. Both their IQ, which is fully mature already at 14, and also their risk-taking and impulse control and all that is simply dismissed. The reality is dismissed in favor of this supposed brain science. And this is going on now, still in 2023. This site is up. I don't know when it was made. It must have been after 2015. But it seems this Kaja Nordanger is a quack. And I except not officially a quack, since she's also a doctor, but she's promoting this kind of quackery. Apparently she also wrote a book about brain training, which is another myth. So she is all into the pseudoscience. But anyway, yeah, I'm leaving this out there so you can see the peak of the teen brain myth. Here it is, folks. So we'll just have to wait for the normies to catch up with the facts on this, which is already happening. I mean, this is like the least gifted researchers with actual jobs in this field that we're looking at now. So, yeah, that was the peak of the teen brain myth.